Did you see Hassan's take on From the River to the Sea on Twitter? Hassan said From the River to the Sea is like BLM, and that BLM doesn't mean what. Okay, listen, I hate, this is the problem with like slogans, okay? Like people can pull a lot of different meanings for them. It's the same with like defund the police. Like, does defund the police mean no police, or does it mean like we need to reduce their funding, you know? From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free can either mean Palestine should be brought back to its historical borders, which would be from the river to the sea, right, from the Mediterranean to the river, or it's a call to genocide of the Jewish people who are there right now. It really depends on who's saying it. It's basically just like saying we will have our land back. We want our land back. You know, so what do you mean by we want our land back? Do you mean like it is then becomes like a multi-ethnic, multi-religious, secular state that everyone can live in peacefully, or do you mean you want to kill everyone who's currently there? Like, what do you mean? My default right now is like basically just go off the vibes of the person saying it. Okay, if somebody is saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and they're like a social democrat or like prog lefty type, they're probably saying it to mean like Palestine should be returned to its like historical borders, right? If there's like some Islamic jihadists screaming it, they probably mean kill the Jews. You know, that's it, just like feel it out. It's vibes, okay? Or you can always ask, like clarify. You know, a lot of people also say it as Palestinians. Or yeah, from the river to the sea, Palestinians will be free. You know, it could be either. I guess Nazis took socialist slogans all the time. It's not a Nazi thing. Nazis did not make the term from the river to the sea. That you know, it's not their territory. But like again, like I have absolutely heard people say it in an anti-Semitic way, and I have absolutely heard people say it in a non-anti-Semitic way. Again, it's the problem with slogans, right? A lot of it is due to charitability.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Amidst growing international condemnation of Israel's month-long assault on Gaza, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is back in Israel today to meet with Israeli officials, where he continued to emphasize Israel's right to defend itself following the October 7th Hamas attack. Meanwhile, the White House continues to dismiss calls for a full ceasefire, saying instead any pauses in fighting should be temporary and localized. This comes as the independent news outlet In These Times reports the White House has requested an unprecedented loophole in arms spending.
Okay, so, okay, they're mentioning it here. This is from 1 hour ago, and they're citing the same paper we were looking at.
To allow it to, quote, be able to conduct arms deals with Israel in complete secrecy without oversight from Congress or the public, unquote. Even as experts say, Israel's been using U.S.-supplied weapons to commit war crimes, unquote. Meanwhile, a new HuffPost report cites 5 current and 1 recently deported State Department official who say their, quote, expertise...
What's your response to the argument that a ceasefire is pointless because Hamas won't follow? Yeah, who cares? That's why I don't like the term ceasefire, because I actually don't give a shit what Hamas does. If there's a ceasefire declared and Hamas keeps fighting, tough shit, Israel. You're the one with the nukes, okay? Sit tight. Everything that's happening right now is Israel's fault anyway. This is not like a this is not like a both of you behave situation. This is an Israel back the fuck off situation.
Peace and standard decision-making processes are being treated as largely irrelevant to President Joe Biden's strategy on the war, which prioritizes support for Israel, unquote. One official described, quote, particular concern about the town hall for the department's...
Hezbollah chief Hassan gives Gaza speech. Holy shit.
And these civilian cars, they're very much clear that they only...
The celebration, as we celebrate our fallen martyr, as we gather today, martyr to continue onto their path. Today we honor the memory of the fallen martyrs, the martyrs of the Islamic resistance in Lebanon, Hezbollah, the martyrs of the Lebanese factions fighting and resisting against the Israeli occupation, the fallen martyrs of Al-Qassam in Lebanon, Al-Quds Brigade martyrs in Lebanon, together with all the fallen civilian martyrs who were murdered at the hands of the Zionists, including journalists.
Fuck, this is gonna be boring as hell, isn't it? He's playing the optics game right now. A Hezbollah leader finally making a TV appearance, like he's gonna try to look like a a balanced world leader who is contradicting Israel's genocidal behavior. Like, he's not going to be screaming Allahu Akbar. He conflated Hamas with Palestine. Yeah, well, he will do that because he has to pose, like, Hamas as liberators. Hezbollah's speech was hyped up, but it was a nothing burger. Here's a fan throwing a shoe. What? But dude, what? Okay. Am I meant to believe this is happening in Lebanon?
I start by offering my deepest condolences to the families of the fallen here in Lebanon.
Dude, how do you get to be an Islamic jihadist leader without being charismatic?
The borderline as a platform to address the whole world. Here, I do not wish to label others as traitors or whatever, yet.
Hezbollah supporters are furious because they hyped the speech up like crazy and he said nothing. Nice. If he's like pulling it back with a speech, it makes it more likely, I think, that Hezbollah does not have any intention of invading Israel. Like, if this was like a preemptive war speech, it would probably be a lot shorter and a lot angrier, and not like a big rambling nothing burger. When I'm in a rambling speech competition and my opponent is Hassan Nasrallah, Ayman al-Zawahiri. Oh wait, sorry, opponent is, and I'm not Ayman al-Zawahiri. Yeah, there you go. Missed that. A lot of text there. Does Israel have a plan after they kill every Hamas leader? They don't give it. They're not going after Hamas. They're just purging Palestinian people. The goal, like, it's pretty on the books. Like, Israel's goal here is genocide, is ethnic cleansing. Hamas is just the convenient excuse. There will never not be Hamas leaders as long as Gaza is occupied by Palestinians, you know?
We should not fall in despair. We should continue to call on our brothers. We should continue. Once again, I warn you not to go further, as many civilians have fallen as martyrs. And this will bring us to the same equation.
Damn, not to get, like, political or whatever, but it sure does suck how anti-art radical Islam is. The Muslim world used to be one of the, like, global epicenters of art and trade and culture, and the like, current, I guess the current, like, Islamist, not to suggest they're all the same, because they're not, but, like, the general trend with, like, modern radical Islamism is like a rejection of beauty in basically all of its forms. Like, everyone dresses down and incredibly conservative, like, the most conservatively in the world, basically. They still have, like, the beauty in the mosques and stuff. I don't know how much radical Islamists even give a shit about their mosques. Like, I remember, didn't ISIS, like, tear down, wait, am I misremembering? Didn't ISIS tear down a bunch of mosques because they weren't, like, the appropriate type or branch or something? Like, there was some, like, ethnic or cultural distinction. They thought there was, like, the wrong, they don't care, they only care about the historical ones. Yeah, they do, like, this purist shit or whatever, you know? In a way, it kind of reminds me of, like, modern tradcaths, where, like, historically, as bad as they've been, Catholics were very interested in beauty. I mean, you can see that in their architecture. But, like, modern tradcaths are just these, like, banal, hyper-conservative, closeted neo-Nazis who don't care about anything other than their, like, borderline sexual paraphilia fear of being by a black man with a larger, and that dictates all their politics. Like, you go from Catholics building, like, some of the finest architecture in human history, and then nowadays, like, your average tradcath is an utterly soulless porn addict who can't think about anything other than Jews and, like, racial cuckoldry, and that's it, you know? Protestantism is boring? Yeah, that's true. That's true. Evangelicals kind of also follow this trend. I don't know. Maybe there's just something about religious extremism I don't like. I don't know much about the artistic trends of Hindu fascists, sorry. That is not a subject that I am even a little bit educated on. Islamists were destroying shrines in Mali. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, they're, like, destroying, like, art and culture and stuff. It's not good. Not good. Art is good, actually. I like art. I think art is cool. A few conclusions for Nasrallah's speech. Iran bit off more than they could chew, likely a level of miscalculation and catastrophic success of the October 7th attack. Iran's in a weak position vis-a-vis its proxy network, actual control issues post-Soleimani. Hezbollah, Iran's crown jewel. Who's this guy? Focus on Iranian proxies and Shia militias. Formerly Washington Institute, University of Maryland, a few others. Okay. I would be very surprised at this point if Hezbollah and Iran intervene in any meaningful way. I feel like if there was an opportunity for them to do so, it would have been earlier on, you know? Whereas right now, it feels like the situation, like Israel's been given too much like control of the situation. Iran never wanted a larger conflict. That's probably true. Most leaders in the region probably just wanted to use this as an excuse to posture and radicalize their base, which they have, you know. In terms of actual engagement, it's very unlikely. Israel has been given all the time they needed to sort of regroup and set their lines, prepare. And of course, there are, you know, U.S. carrier strike groups right off the water, which is pretty formidable. Actually, the most formidable. Yes, as formidable as it gets, actually. So I'm guessing they probably don't want to tangle with that, you know? Especially because it's important to remember, like, historically, the thing that makes occupation really difficult for a greater power is that it's really tough to weed terrorists out from civilian populations. Israel doesn't give a shit because they'll just kill the civilians too. So they managed to circumvent that particular, you know, snafu by just doing war crimes, which is a strategy. I mean, that is a thing you can do. But in terms of like Hezbollah and Iran, so if we imagine like Hezbollah attacking from the north, they would be very exposed, you know? Tunnels can only take you so far. Like, to a large extent, if Hezbollah invaded from the north, like 100,000 people or whatever, that's a lot of open ground they have to cover. And in open territory, they would get obliterated almost instantly by, you know, the carrier strike groups or by the IDF. So, you know, they kind of have to rely on tactics that at this point aren't even doing, like, they aren't even working that well in Gaza for Hamas. There are reports that Hamas has gotten some pretty surprising, you know, dubs against the IDF incursions so far into northern Gaza, but I don't know how true those are. I saw a post about Israel doing an unsupported armored advance. Does anyone know if that's true? Israel armored advance northern Gaza. Israeli troops roll into Gaza City as ground offensive intensifies. Satellites and social media offer hints about Israel's ground war strategy. Yes, there's a video of an unsupported armored advance. You know, sympathy is where they're due. Gaza City is an extremely difficult nut to crack from the perspective of, like, infantrymen, you know? Generally speaking, the more densely packed the city and the more the city already is, like, the more treacherous it is to move through it because, you know, you have literally no way of clearing all the territory. It's incredibly dense. Again, like, they're just killing everyone they see, basically, so, you know, whatever. But here's what you're thinking. It was a single tank that got ambushed and it's being played up. Okay, yeah, it would surprise me enormously if there was an unsupported armored advance. Random thoughts on the Al-Qassam footage from the IDF ground incursion, no particular order. Okay, so they took out one tank, basically. The situation with Israel is another huge reminder at how ineffective superior wealth and numbers can be when it comes to long-term occupation. Like, Israel has some of the most advanced security state apparatuses in the world, and it didn't stop 2,000 Hamas dudes from amassing on the border with a bunch of aeroplanes and, like, tractors and blasting through. Like, all the hyper-advanced equipment in the world, just a couple thousand dudes with guns and grenades and paragliders and tractors and whatever. The lawnmower legion moving, just breaking through. You know, like, it takes $100,000 interceptor missile to intercept, like, a bottle rocket. It's you know, there were like 3 videos of Hamas targeting IDF tanks from close distance, including one where a dude just ran up to a tank and placed an explosive on it. Yeah, this is one of the things that makes moving in on a super dense area like Gaza City really difficult. Tanks are actually insanely vulnerable, like massively vulnerable in cities, because a tank can get knocked out with very little equipment, like, you know, an explosive in the right place or a rocket or whatever. You know, modern tanks, like modern, extremely advanced U.S. tanks, have like reactive armor that blows up in the opposite direction when it senses something coming at it. It's got like a million contingencies, you know. But like at the end of the day, if you've got a dude with a little bit of grit and elbow grease and he's got enough like explosives that he's slathered glue onto, you know, anyone can take down a tank. So moving a tank into a really dense urban environment is sort of gambling like a $50 million piece of equipment on whether or not there's a dude with you know, enough improvised explosive devices hiding in the rubble. It's they're very difficult equipment to manage, which is why you always want infantry support.